two. 1, 2, 3.
Are you ready, America? It's time for another edition of Game On with your hosts, Stevie Ray Braun, and Brad Bad News Bollinger. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Game On. Talking about your favorite sports and different parts of life. Might even get a little take on Lane Kiffin's wife. They tell you what they think, you're not afraid to take a stance. They'll give you the number of pleats in Charlie Weiss's pants. They're the game on guys, see sports through their eyes. Political correctness just up and dies when they give you their views on any sport you want to hear. They're the game on guys, eating fries, drinking beer.
That's right, it is Game On. Steve Braun, Brad Bollinger, glad you're joining us. And we had to hop on and do a podcast because we had to break down the UFL trades that are taking place. I don't know if you saw those, Brad. And also the fact that Oklahoma City is going to get a UFL team in 2028, so we have to go down our coach hot list of who we think will be the head coach for when that team launches in 2028. So with no further ado, Brad, who is on your hot list for the UFL OKC team?
I got the wrong show rundown, I think. Mike Gundy? I don't know.
You're probably not wrong.
I mean, it's an educated guess.
That is fair. That's very, very fair. Also, talking about Oklahoma City and pro teams, did you see that Live Golf rebranded one of their teams to OKGC?
I did, yeah. Pretty cool, as long as Live Golf doesn't fold, I guess. So, who knows?
Yeah, that also seems to be the case.
I mean, cautiously optimistic, I guess.
I'm like, is he just playing? Taylor Gooch is just going to end up playing on the TGL or whatever, indoor.
I mean, might as well. Golfers have such a good life; it's ridiculous. Like,
they really do. It's ridiculous.
I just can't imagine a worry in the world if you're a professional golfer that can make a living at least.
It sounds rough. All right, so why we are actually doing a podcast for the first time in I don't know how long is the NFL draft is coming up on Thursday. We got to break down who we think will be the top 10 picks. So with no further ado, let's get it started. And the Las Vegas Raiders. Who do you have, Brad, going first overall in the 2026 NFL draft?
Well, with the first pick in the NFL draft, I have the Las Vegas Raiders selecting Fernando Mendoza, quarterback out of Indiana. I know there was a lot of drama there. You were on the edge of your seat wondering who I was going to say. But I think this is a situation for the Raiders where they just got to, lean into it, send it and forget it type of thing. You can't argue with what Mendoza was able to accomplish in college, taking Indiana to a national championship season. Just a really nice feel-good story, which is kind of weird for the Raiders to kind of be a part of. But I will say I think they've done a nice job starting to fill out that roster to kind of help insulate and bring in Mendoza to have a little bit of a softer landing as far as like rookie seasons go. They made the move to bring in Tyler Linderbaum, the veteran center, and even brought in Kirk Cousins to serve as kind of that, backup quarterback, but also kind of that mentor role for the Raiders as well. So they're already making, progress in my mind, which is a big step anytime you talk about the Raiders. So, you start looking at the roster, it's starting to fill out a little bit. Honestly, you've got Ashton Genty back in the backfield with Mendoza. You've got Brock Bowers, possibly the best tight end in the NFL. All of a sudden, hey, things are kind of starting to look up for the Raider franchise, which I think is good for football. I know those fans will be excited for it, and I think the NFL is better off when the Raiders are an interesting franchise and a relevant franchise. So I'm excited about this pick, but I do have Mendoza going first.
Yeah, I've got Mendoza as well. I think with, like you mentioned, they added Kirk Cousins. I think this is a solid pick. Tom Brady seems to be signing off on it as well, as he's got part ownership and is really playing a big role in the football ops as well. The fact that you have Cousins also allows Mendoza to have that kind of redshirt year if needed, and I think that could be a strong possibility as well. Clint Kubiak coming in as the head coach, former OC for the Seahawks. Um, you mentioned Genty as well. The thing I question is, do we see Ashton Genty and Mendoza for 4 years, or do we only get 3 years? I mean, you just got to think about Genty is already going to be in his second year of basically what's going to be 5 years of his contract. How many years are we really going to get of these two? Do we see a second
Well, I
contract for
mean,
Genty?
I think if you get 3 years of them, I think that's better than what they have been producing.
That's
I
very
mean,
true.
looking at that Pete Carroll led team last year, Geno Smith struggling, throwing interceptions every other pass, just a miserable, miserable season for them. So I think any positive momentum is much desired by that franchise at this point. So I, it seems like it could be a situation where hey, maybe they start to kind of gel in year two, even they're a little bit more competitive. And then maybe there's a situation where it's like they really think they got something special going on. They work it out with the salaries. The players want to play together. They want to continue to build off of what they're creating there. So you never know. It just feels so much of like a this is such a breath of fresh air for the Raiders, and I think any positive years that you can get at this current time is going to be a big plus for them, especially now that they're in Vegas. I think the Raiders can kind of be a franchise where they don't have to be a perennial contender to be a big part of the NFL. And obviously, the fan base is very dedicated and will continue to pack out the stadium, good or bad. They enjoy booing them as much as they enjoy cheering them. So it's a nice situation. Plus, Vegas is a really interesting city, obviously, per usual. That's nothing new, but with all of the sports franchises kind of landing in Vegas at this point, and you talk about the Oakland Athletics coming to town soon, and the possibility of an NBA franchise landing in Vegas as well. It's just it feels like there's just so much excitement in the Vegas sports world, which I think is very, very good for all of sports, honestly. I think that's a destination that people will go to see a game. A lot of Californians will drive there. A lot of people will fly there because there's so many direct flight options, things along those lines. Because, hey, even if the game sucks, we can just head back and hit up the strip. Um, WrestleMania was just there. A lot of great and exciting stuff going on there. So I'm just really fascinated to see 5 years from now how we're talking about the Las Vegas, sports scene. And Francisco Mendoza can be one of those building block pieces to where, you get more eyes on the Raiders franchise and Vegas as a whole. So I think this is just kind of a no-brainer. Take that quarterback. If he doesn't work out, that's par for the course for them. But hey, maybe he will. Again, I don't think you can really discount what he was able to accomplish in college. I know that Indiana just completely turned that program around. Obviously, Signetti is a big part of that, but the players he was able to bring in really clicked and were able to complete that vision that he had. And now they're going to be a perennial contender themselves. So um, why not just ride that momentum? Mendoza's such a good dude too.
Hmm.
He's such a well-spoken, nice, kind, thoughtful interview. It's kind of interesting that Kirk Cousins is going to serve as kind of like a mentor role for him because they have a lot of similarities. Are we getting a Kirk Cousins Jr.? How will the Coles stock rise with this combination, this deadly pairing for them? Will there be enough Coles cash to go around? These are the questions that the people are asking.
It really is. All right, move on to the second pick, the New York Jets. Who do you have going with the second pick?
This was a tough one. I think this is obviously where you kind of start getting into theories, guesses, things along those lines. But Jets are one of those teams that have a lot of holes on their roster. And at this point, I think that they go with David Bailey, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. I think there's been a lot of discussion lately linking the two together. So I think where there's smoke, there's fire here. David Bailey, if you watched him in his college career, he really really stood out. He was a game wrecker, just a big time playmaker on the defensive side of the ball. Very tenacious, and I think that with the Jets, again, they have so much to add, but I think they made the move, which I think is kind of telling of where they want to go here, of adding Tavondre Sweat, nose tackle, 365-pound, giant, you know, uh, clog up the middle of the field type of guy. And so I think to complement that Sweat acquisition, adding a playmaker like David Bailey on the edge will always, be a major benefit. Being able to rush the passer in the NFL is vital. The Jets are going to need a lot more help, like I said, but this is a good start to really like find that foundational piece on the front seven of the defensive side of the ball. So I'm going with David Bailey here.
I agree with you. I'm going to go Bailey as well. I think you look at this coming down basically between him and Arvell Reese, the edge from Ohio State. I think the Jets will go with Bailey, who is kind of the for sure guy right now. Reese may have more upside, but Aaron Glenn's job may be on the line with this season, and with him taking over the defensive play calling as well, I think they will lean towards Bailey. Even though he is going to be 23 years old by the time the season starts or mid-season of his rookie year, I think he is the pick here for the Jets because they are in we got to get this thing going and moving forward quickly, and we can't take something that may have a lot of potential but also isn't quite there.
Right, and I think there was a lot of debate if they take Arvell Reese out of Ohio State here, and I just think that the deciding factor to me seems to be Reese's inexperience at that particular position. That's not to say he can't develop into that ideal edge rusher, but I think the safe option, if you can even call it that here, I think both are obviously very valuable picks, but I think the safe option is the David Bailey pick, and I think that's kind of why they lean towards Bailey in this spot.
All right, the Arizona Cardinals' third pick. I'm going to let you know who I think. I'm going to go with Jeremiah Love, the running back out of Notre Dame, with this pick. I think the Cardinals. There's been a lot of rumor or a lot of discussion of that being a possibility. I think they'll go Love. He's probably the top rated player on most big boards amongst a lot of the draft prognosticators and the Todd McShays and Mel Kipers and all of that. I think it also allows them to start kind of looking towards next year. I don't think they're going to be in the Arch Manning uh, running necessarily because I think the Manning family will have a say in that, and I don't think Arizona is going to be a landing spot for them. But that could be a place for a Dante Moore. What better for a a rookie quarterback than a strong running game, a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield, that can do a little bit of everything. Jeremiah Love provides that. I think this is we can get something here and kind of start looking towards 2027 as well.
Interesting pick. I'm so fascinated to see where Love goes in this draft. I think that's possibly the biggest question, especially in this first, top 10 range is who takes that guy unless they are a freak of nature. You think about, a Saquon Barkley type or even Bijan Robinson recently. It's one of those situations where just the way the NFL is set up, running backs aren't as high of a value at this point in the draft. And I think that the league and teams around the league acknowledge what a special talent that Love is, but I still don't know if it's enough for a lot of them to pull the trigger. I do believe that the Cardinals are going to try very hard to trade out of this pick and acquire a little more draft capital later on in the draft.
I
So
agree with that too.
my guess would be that they end up trading out of this position. But since this is a mock draft and I can't really predict who's going to trade where, I'll have the Arizona Cardinals go ahead and take Arvell Reese out of Ohio State, the edge rusher I just mentioned. Um, there's so many, yeah, again, like the Jets, there's so many holes in that roster. A lot of uncertainty at the quarterback position there. Uh, there's a saying that's been going around that running back doesn't make a good team or doesn't make a bad team good. Running back makes a good team great. I think that the Cardinals are in such a poor position in this upcoming season that um, it's a possibility that they would waste a majority of that time with Love there. So I don't know if this draft pick in a top three position is worth wasting on a running back like that. I think you've got to try, obviously, first acquire all the capital you can to fill out that roster with better players. But in this position, uh, I think you just kind of take best available. And that's where I see Arvell Reese in this spot. So I'll go with that as number three.
All right, fourth pick, the Tennessee Titans. Um, I have who you just had going to the Cardinals, Arvell Reese going number 4. I think Sala coming in with the Titans. They've already got Cam Ward on the offensive side. Yes, they have a lot of needs on the offensive side as well. They've got a lot of needs everywhere. But I think being able to get a guy like Reese that can kind of be that future defensively from the edge out of Ohio State would be the pick here for the Titans.
All right. I have the Titans selecting Sonny Styles, linebacker out of Ohio State. Another Buckeye going off early in the draft here. Um, typically, I feel like this is kind of a little bit too high for a guy like Sonny Styles to go, but considering all the factors with the Tennessee Titans, I think you've got Robert Saleh coming in. Um, Sonny Styles has gotten a lot of comps to Fred Warner, and we all know the connection there with Saleh and Fred Warner. So, you know, um, I think it's kind of a little bit outside the box type of pick because he's an off-ball linebacker, and I think that's a little bit more rare to kind of have an off-ball linebacker that's an elite type of player in the NFL. So I just think that the Salah, connection here, it makes too much sense for them to pass up this opportunity to let him kind of build out his dream defense, and why not, get a centerpiece like Sonny Styles from Ohio State. So I'm taking Styles at number 4.
All right, fifth pick, the New York Giants. Who do you have going there?
The Giants are the most interesting team in this draft to me. I feel like they are on the doorstep of being relevant again, and a lot of that is going to depend on how they perform in this year's draft. You've got a new coach in Harbaugh coming in, and you saw a little bit of success and flashes of brilliance last year with Jackson Dart in his rookie season, Cam Scadaboo. We know about Malik Neighbors. So I am so fascinated by the Giants, who recently traded Dexter Lawrence to the Bengals to
Hmm.
acquire another top 10 pick in this year's draft. So they'll actually have the fifth and 10th pick in this draft. So
Yep.
I'm so intrigued to see what they do here. Um, this is a spot where I've seen so many names thrown around and so many interesting options. I think there's a case to be made for a handful of guys here. I'd love to see something interesting like, I've seen Jeremiah Love projected to this position. I don't
Hmm.
think they'll do that. Obviously, they have the Scadaboo coming back this year, and the running back isn't really as big of a need as some of the others with the Giants. So um, I've really kind of went back and forth with this. Um, I think Harbaugh realizes that it's important to have those foundational centerpieces on both sides of the ball. So here, I'm just gonna go ahead and lean with what I'm thinking. I had the New York Giants taking Caleb Downs, safety out of Ohio State. Yet another Buckeye in the top five for me. I just think Downs is a special player, and he can really be that defensive tone setter for the Giants as they start this new era of relevancy and a lot of high expectations. So um, I think they could go with an offensive weapon here at five if they wanted
Hmm.
to, but I also believe that they know they could just probably wait till 10 if they wanted to do that as well. So I think, again, best available here for what they need, Caleb Downs, Ohio State.
Yeah, I think the you mentioned it. The Giants are kind of a wild card because they can go so many different ways, and I think Downs is one of those options. You look at Harbaugh with the Ravens defense and kind of how that was established. Always seemed to have that solid safety play. You think back to Ed Reed, Kyle Hamilton, even more recently. Always kind of having that guy, and Downs could fill that role. Um, you look offensively. You mentioned it. Could they add a playmaker that goes opposite of Malik Neighbors, who's coming back from injury? There's a lot of people that are rumored to kind of have that as a possibility. Offensive line, you look at Jackson Dart. I think having that 10th pick and you look at how the offensive line options look right now, probably looks more feasible there. With that, I think this is where Sonny Styles, at least in my board, again, you have him going a spot earlier, but I think Sonny Styles, if he's there, could be that option for the New York Giants. 6'5", 244 pounds, off ball linebacker, a guy that could kind of kickstart that defense for the Giants and kind of give them some versatility as well. Um, Again, I think they have so many possibilities here, and it's going to play out, or it's going to decide how things play out up ahead of them. I don't see Jeremiah Love being an option for them. You mentioned Scadaboo. I think that makes sense of kind of going with him with what they saw most of last season as well. But my pick would be Sonny Styles, the defensive or the linebacker, excuse me, from Ohio State. So, with that, the number 6 pick is the Cleveland Browns, who seem to always be up in the top 10. Brad, where do you have the Browns looking to go in this 2026 draft?
Oh, the Browns. I don't even want to comment on the Browns, but I guess that I will here. It seems to me that their thought process, which I never understand their thought process, but it
Nope.
seems to me they are giving this whole Shador Sanders thing another go. I am personally not a believer of Shador Sanders or the Browns as a whole, but if I'm playing make believe here and want to go along with what they're doing, I do like what they have with their most recent draft picks of Harold Pinnon Jr. at tight end and Quinshon Judkins. I think they had really great rookie seasons, and there's a lot of positive things to pull from there. I think they will continue to try to surround Shador with weapons and try to make this thing work because they desperately need a quarterback situation to work, and they need it to work as soon as possible. So I think they're going to kind of push their chips all in and try to just uh, surrounds Shador with the best possible talent. So again, yet another Ohio State Buckeye. I have the Cleveland Browns taking Cornell Tate at number 6.
Ooh, okay. I don't hate it. I definitely think that's in play. I think him, Jordan Tyson at wide receiver could also be an option from Arizona State. I, however, am going to see that they try to bolster that offensive line, and they will go with Francis Maui Noah, the offensive tackle from Miami, Florida. Um, just trying to boost that offensive line and try to help keep whoever is at quarterback upright while also strengthening that run game as well. You mentioned that they seem to be leaning into Sanders, but Monken has also said, hey, there is a quarterback competition, and it's not with Dylan Gabriel. It's the fact that Deshaun Watson might actually be back from and healthy for the first time since he's been a Cleveland Brown,
Yeah,
which is
good luck.
terrifying. Yes, exactly. Again, the Cleveland Browns being the Cleveland Browns. All right, the 7th pick, the Washington Commanders. I have a guy that you had going a few stops earlier, Caleb Downs, the safety out of Ohio State. I think this is a best available player type situation for the Commanders. That defense needs some help. Dan Quinn being the head coach. Downs, just so much versatility that he brings as well from that safety spot. I also think you look at, I'm drawing a blank now. He's from Muskogee. Cameron Curl was a safety for the Commanders 2 years ago. More recently with the Rams, just signed a longer term deal with the Rams as well. But once he left in free agency, you saw that safety position kind of diminish a little bit. This is an opportunity to bring in a guy in Caleb Downs that could have a very, very long career in the NFL and help solidify that defensive backfield and really that defense for the Commanders as well.
Yeah, I think the Commanders are in a really good spot here. I think they're going to have, no matter what goes and falls ahead of in front of them, I think they're still going to have someone there that they really love and are excited and ecstatic to pick, whether that be on the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball. Um, my thought process here was going back to that saying that I touched on earlier, where I think the Washington Commanders truly believe that they are a contending team.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, last year was a bit of uh, an off year for them with the Jaden Daniels injury, and they were freshly removed off of a NFC Championship appearance in Daniels' rookie season. Had a lot of high expectations heading into that second year last year, and it just didn't go the way they thought it would. But I still know that there's a mindset there with Dan Quinn and his roster that um, they don't plan on picking in the top 10 anytime soon in the following years of the NFL draft. I truly believe they are the mindset that they are a few pieces away from being right back in Super Bowl contention. So with that being said, I see this as a very interesting pick, and I think a lot of things will have to fall for this to really happen and or work out. But I'm actually going with the Washington Commanders selecting Jeremiah Love in this position to pair with Jaden Daniels.
Love it.
Again, that saying, um, a running back doesn't make a bad team good, but it will make a good team great. And the Commanders are completely bought in that they are a good team and on the precipice of greatness, and that's where a playmaker like Jeremiah Love can come in and take them to that next level that they're looking to get to.
Yeah, again, I had Love going 3 to the Cardinals. I do not see him getting past the Commanders. If he is there, I think that's where he goes. I think he's going to go earlier, but again, if he's available, the Commanders will take him at 7, in my opinion, because of all the reasons that you just stated. It just uh, that's a running back room that could use a guy that is a complete game changer and an offense that could be bolstered quite a bit with a player like that. It'll be interesting to see what they do offensively now that Cliff Kingsbury is not there. They made that change in the offseason as well. All right, number 8, the Saints. I've got Reuben Bain Jr. going here, the edge out of Miami. Cam Jordan not on the roster at the moment. Even if he does return, Bain brings some youth and joy and juice to that edge as well. I just think this is a guy that, yeah, he's got short arms. A guy that has as short of arms that he does has never been drafted this early and all of that. But he was just productive at Miami, and I think the Saints will be looking for a edge player here, and he seems to be about the best one that's available at that point.
Yeah, I agree. I I think there's some consideration with the Saints of trying to go out and find a playmaker for Tyler Shuck
Mm-hmm.
and really help propel that offense to uh, a very high threat for big plays. And you talk about Olave and Kamara's getting a little bit older, but they have Devin Neal as well, and I think they just need to start really like filling out those weapons around Shuck. If they believe in him, he had a great rookie season, came on strong at the end of the year, and it looks like they have found their guy for the near future. So at this spot in the draft, number 8, I think it's just a little bit of a reach to try to go for that receiver at this point. And with all the things that you said about Reuben Bain already, I think he's the smart pick here. I think he could be a perfect replacement for Cam Jordan as well on the defensive side of the ball down there in New Orleans. So I'll take Reuben Bain Jr. as well.
All right, with the ninth pick, the Kansas City Chiefs are on the board. Who do you have the Chiefs going with as Patrick Mahomes set to return but coming off of injury? Not sure when that return will be. Who could you see sliding into that ninth pick?
Another interesting, fascinating selection here, and similar to the Commanders, but with much more reason to believe this. The Chiefs don't think that they are going to be picking in the top 10 anytime soon. Probably for the rest of Mahomes' career is what I would guess is their mindset. They don't, this is a unique opportunity for them. They're not going to have a lot of losing seasons to, land them in this spot. So I believe that, there's always this thing ever since Tyreek Hill left where the Chiefs have been searching for that playmaking receiver that really changes the entire offense for Kansas City. They've been very limited in terms of big plays since the Tyreek Hill departure, and they've been searching for that guy that can step in that role and really be that downfield threat, big plays. But I don't. I just feel like they don't think that that's there for them at this mark. So um, I think Brett Veach and Andy Reid will be smart about this, and I'm going offensive tackle here. Francis Magola out of Miami. I think it just makes sense with Mahomes' knee injury to shore up that offensive line. There were some question marks there throughout the season last year, and I think this is just a perfect opportunity for them to get that that anchor on the offensive line for them to go along with Creed Humphrey there at the center position. And it just feels like it fell into their lap that they can make a bad situation uh, into a good one with this smart and sensible pick. So I'm going with the offensive tackle there at number 9 for the Chiefs.
I like that pick, and that's kind of where I was leaning as well. A lot of the discussion that you had, offensive line. You look back to how when Mahomes has gotten hurt, and it really only happened one other time, but when he got hurt, they adjusted and made like he has not done a quarterback sneak since that injury, which is wild to think. Now you have this injury. Like, how will they adjust? Well, they'll probably go offensive lineman, you would think, but I'm gonna actually go with the hey, they've been looking for that dynamic player that can kind of be a talented piece that can spark the offense, all of that. But I'm not going to go wide receiver. I'm going to go Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon. Yes, Travis Kelce is coming back. He
Mm.
signed a multi-year contract, but he almost, it seemed, retired this offseason, and I can't see uh, him playing out the completion of that contract. So I think by going and getting a guy like Sadiq, yes, he probably would be the third tight end taken in last year's draft amongst Loveland and Warren. But he is a first round type tight end. Those don't come around that often. This is a team that has had an offense, and you look at Andy Reid's offenses in the past they've leaned on tight end play, and being able to get a guy like Sadiq, I think that could set them up to have Mahomes have that safety valve, strong player that can bring something, especially when, let's be honest, Travis Kelce wasn't the Travis Kelce that we've seen. I mean, yes, it was still okay, but it was not up to the level that we expect. So I'm going to go Sadiq. Do I really think that'll happen? I don't know. Probably not. I think you're right. It'll probably be some kind of offensive tackle pick with that ninth overall, but I'm going to go Sadiq either way.
That's such a fascinating uh, pick and idea. I think Sadiq is one of the most interesting players in this year's draft to me. I think a lot of teams would be happy to have him. I'm actually hoping he goes to Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're in desperate need of a tight end. But the thing with Sadiq that a lot of teams love is his blocking ability,
Yep.
and he's mobile and he can help with a lot of different run games. And I think he would fit in well with, I mentioned Tampa Bay. I think Zach Robinson coming in, calling the plays in his first year in Tampa. I think Sadiq would be a really good fit. Obviously as a pass catcher, but in Zach Robinson's run game as well, as that blocker that I mentioned. Um, but I see a wide range for him. Like he could go, you talk about going in the top 10 of the Chiefs. I've seen some projected kind of later in the first round, possibly towards the end of the first round. Uh, I'm keeping. He's one of my top three most interesting players in this draft, and I'm really keeping an eye on where he goes because whoever gets him, it'll be a win to me and a good pick, honestly, because I'm a big fan of what he can do. And the Chiefs, that feels like it could potentially be one of those things where it's like a cheat code, right? It's like how did the league let the Chiefs get this guy, right?
Yeah.
We just had Travis Kelce for a decade plus. How did we get Sadiq in there to kind of just step into that role flawlessly? And again, if you don't love the wide receiver options at this point, um, you can still add a weapon like Sadiq here, and I love that pick. I'm not sure if they'll do that or not. I
Yeah.
do, we discussed probably a pass blocker, but
Mm-hmm.
that would be such a fascinating pick to me. And anything that the Chiefs do, you kind of at this point have this feeling that what are they up to? They know something we don't. What's going on? So that would be really fun.
All right. Our 10th and final pick that we are doing in our mock draft here in this podcast, the New York Giants, who have traded into this spot as they got rid of Dexter Lawrence, um, to the Cincinnati Bengals. 10th pick, second first round pick for the Giants, second one of this top 10 as well. Brad, where do you see the now John Harbaugh led Giants going with the 10th overall pick?
Again, super interested in the Giants draft this year and what they end up deciding to do. But I was back and forth between adding that offensive weapon for them to match up with Malik Neighbors and also finding that replacement for Dexter Lawrence, who they just traded away. Maybe shore up that the middle of their defensive line there. But for the sake of entertainment, um, I I'm gonna go with Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. you think about what that would give that Giants offense. We talked about Dart and Scatabo, Malik Neighbors. If you add a viable option opposite of Malik Neighbors, and a lot of people see Tyson, if he can stay healthy, a lot of people see him as a very dynamic receiver. I've seen lots of Stephon Diggs comparisons with Tyson, and if you threw someone like a Stephon Diggs, a young Stephon Diggs, opposite Malik Neighbors, that's just an instant jolt to your offense, and it really puts the defense in some awkward positions because you can pound the ball with Scatabo, you can run Dart, a little bit. You can throw it to that wide receiver one, just an incredible playmaker, Malik Neighbors, and now you throw in that secondary option on the outside. It's just going to put them in so many awkward positions on the defensive side of the ball that it's just too enticing for me to pass up in this particular mock draft. So I would love to see Tyson out of Arizona State going to the Giants at 10.
I definitely think that's a viable option for the Giants. Again, they have so many ways they can go. I'm going with Spencer Fano, um, the offensive tackle from Utah. I think they've got to shore up that offensive line. It's an offensive line that, if you look back, Jackson Dart last year finished in the bottom third of the league in sacks and pass pressure. So need to get something fixed there. I think Fano could definitely do that. He was able to hold his own against David Bailey, the Texas Tech defensive end, who I have going number 2. You have going number 2 to the crosstown or across the stadium New York Jets. I just think that's an option or something that they seriously have to do. You've already got Malik Neighbors. You've got some veteran options in Slayton and Mooney at wide receiver as well. Not saying those guys are difference makers necessarily, but with Neighbors back healthy, you've got Scatteraboo back, Jackson Dark's back. You need to shore up the offensive line, and then you can start backfilling with what is a pretty deep offensive, quote, talented position or skill position players that you could get later in the draft as well for the Giants. So my thought is go Fano there as well for the Giants.
Interesting thought in my brain with Fano is I wonder, the knock on Fano, I think would be again, it's this concept of he's got shorter arms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering how much of an impact Will Campbell's season in New England scares off teams that face this kind of, should we take this talented tackle who really performed really well in college? Like you said, he performed well against a top pass rusher in the country, all of that. But does that arm length really kind of haunt them in the decision-making process? And is Will Campbell like in a lot of people's brains at this point with when you think about this specific trait? And I'm just so fascinated by like how far this is going to go with the whole short arm theory at tackle. So that was my, Fano is a talented, and I don't really love that I have so many few offensive linemen in my top 10, but these are the types of things that just kind of pushed him a little bit outside the top 10 for me.
And that's fair. I think that is something that is a discussion that is going to be taking place and probably has been in a lot of draft rooms and just scouting rooms as well as we get closer to the draft. All right. So the draft first round gets going Thursday night, second day 2 Friday, and then finish things up for all those real draft degenerates on Saturday. I know Brad and I will be keeping an eye on it because we are those degenerates in that case. All right, let's move to NBA playoffs underway. Thunder got off to a great start with a big win over the Suns. Possibly, we are recording this on Tuesday evening. The Lakers and Rockets are playing Game 2 currently, and Lakers are up as we get close to halftime. But there's a chance that all 3 games that have taken place at this point could be or all 3 series that are into their second game could be at a tie 1-1 in the series. Nuggets and Timberwolves, we saw that last night with the Timberwolves getting the win. Spurs getting the loss tonight against the Trailblazers. Brad, this Western Conference, Wemby getting in concussion protocol this evening as well. Things could get interesting, and the Thunder, they should be able to move past the Suns with ease with a sweep, but you start looking at this and how things are playing out, this could get really interesting and make the path to the championship a little bit easier for the Thunder.
It definitely can. I've had this lingering feeling all season long that people are really taking the Thunder for granted, especially after their championship run last year. Um, a lot of that, I believe, is due to this whole, fascination with Victor Wembanyama, and rightfully so. He is an absolute alien, as they like to call him, something we've never seen before. Just his size and the way he can move at his size and his defensive prowess and all the things that he can do. And the Spurs have been a fun story, a really young roster that's ahead of schedule and playing really well. And I think people really fell in love with the Spurs this year. And I don't blame them, but I was shocked at how much that people are discounting the Oklahoma City Thunder this postseason. When you look at the Thunder's season, they were dealt a lot of injuries throughout the year. You saw a lot of guys on that roster get a lot of playing time. So I think that's a glass half full situation when you have injuries like that. And we know that the Thunder are the deepest roster in the league, and just the fact that a lot of those newer guys, AJ Mitchell is a new threat for them this year, who's been really, really improved from previous years. He's really had a breakout year. They had the acquisition of Jared McCain from Philadelphia earlier in the season. Don't know how they managed to pull that one off. Sam Presti does it again. And you look at Jared McCain was a potential rookie of the year candidate last year until his injury. And now he's, at the end of the Thunder bench, but still a very, viable contributor for that team. Every single person on the Oklahoma City roster can hold their own on the basketball court. It's amazing. This is the deepest roster I've ever seen in my time watching the NBA. It's just incredible, the versatility and how good they are defensively. Just, the 10th man is just as big of a defensive stopper as a lot of people's starting lineup stoppers are. So it's just, it blows my mind that people are not taking the Thunder as seriously as they need to be here. It seemed to work. Everything just is falling into place for the Thunder. They got healthy at the end of the year. They got Jalen Williams back. Hartenstein's back. Chet's healthy. Everyone's healthy. They really, they had some time there at the end of the year to kind of get that starting lineup to gel and get a little bit of that chemistry that they missed while J-Dub was out. And, they got the most favorable bracket outcome that they could have possibly gotten for the playoffs. They have the easiest path that they could have ever hoped for. It's all just set up for the Thunder to, make yet another appearance in the NBA Finals this year. I'm not betting against them. People are going to start realizing that, yes, Wemby's time may be coming soon, but, the Thunder run 12 deep, right? Like they can throw so many bodies at you. They had Alex Caruso guarding Jokic in the playoffs last year, and he did a pretty damn good job at that. So it's just, you never know what you're going to get with them. They can throw a million different combinations at you. So I'm really heavy on the Thunder this season. But with, the Wemby injury here, you mentioned the concussion protocol. I think that is a big, big storyline. Portland was actually able to tie up the series 1-1 tonight. And kudos to Portland. They've had a really good year. I think they've overachieved. They got some nice pieces there now with Donovan Clingan and Denny Avicii. So it's fascinating that the Spurs still lost that, because I think that their team is good enough to beat the Blazers without Wemby. So we'll have to see how long they're going to actually have to do that. We knew that the Nuggets and Timberwolves would be a fascinating series. I still don't think it's going to be very competitive. I'm such a non-believer in Minnesota, and I've always kind of referred to Anthony Edwards as a mirage. I think everybody loves him so much that they want him to be that next face of the league, especially the next American face of the league, because right now the game is dominated by international players, and we're kind of looking for that next, American to take the baton from LeBron and really take us into that new generation. I just think people want it to be Anthony Edwards so badly. You can't deny his physical talent. He can score in bunches. His athleticism is out of this world. But personally, I just never have seen him as that guy, and I'm honestly wondering when people are going to start holding him accountable for that. I know they've made a couple of consecutive appearances in the Western Conference Finals, which is all good and great. I think they can be competitive with anybody, but I just don't see them as a real threat to knock off an elite team like the Denver Nuggets. So I think the Nuggets kind of work that out and get past them, and we'll see how the Wemby situation works out. Nuggets versus Spurs, again, a situation where it's, the Thunder are sitting back looking like, yeah, we might get 2 straight sweeps, honestly, and then we can watch the Nuggets struggle with the Timberwolves, and the Spurs have injury problems with Wemby, and then we see the Nuggets play the Spurs and beat each other up before we even play one of them. We avoided having to play both of them, so it's just such an ideal situation for OKC. I can't imagine them not coming out of the West. I think the Nuggets are the most dangerous threat to them still.
Yeah.
So you never know with, a player like Jokic, best player in the league, arguably. They're always going to be in the game and competitive, and they could beat the Thunder, sure. I wouldn't be shocked, but I just think it's OKC's year yet again. And in the East, I'm not sure that anyone can really confidently pick anyone at this point besides the Boston Celtics, with Jason Tatum returning from that Achilles injury last year in the playoffs. His recovery has been remarkable. He hasn't missed a step. He is looking great. And again, kind of the similar thing to J-Dub. They had some time at the end of the regular season to kind of build that chemistry and gel together again. And it's looking very, it's starting to look very fluid. Even with the loss tonight, they did lose to Philadelphia in Game 2 tonight. But again, I don't think that series is going to be much of a scare for them. I think Boston goes and takes the next 2 in Philadelphia and closes out at home to win the series in 5. The biggest storylines in the East, I think, are Boston reestablishing the dominance. I think it feels like a make or break year for the New York Knicks. A lot of people don't expect them to get to the finals or even the Eastern Conference Finals this year. So if they lose in the first or second round, I think there's going to be a little bit of a shakeup in New York. And also the number 1 seed in the East, the Detroit Pistons, another young, impressive, fun to watch team. Let's see how they kind of handle that playoff pressure. Cade Cunningham has continued to develop into a superstar, and the East is open in a sense of who is it going to be playing Boston, essentially, right? Like who can get there and kind of give them a run for their money? Is it going to be Detroit? Could possibly be a Cleveland with Donovan Mitchell and that talented roster as well. So it's the West is loaded. It's filled with powerhouses. The East is a little more clear at this point, but I've got OKC and Boston meeting in the finals, and I would feel very confident placing some sort of wager on that to happen.
Which I saw in the Tulsa World had a story about you might be able to do legal wagering in the state of Oklahoma sooner rather than later.
It is crazy that isn't already a thing.
It really is. But
I was having this conversation the other day, just the amount of commercials and promotion that you see nowadays with sports gambling and gambling in general, like, even wagering on political races and the most random things. It's like every other commercial is a gambling commercial, right? And Oklahoma, big surprise, always behind in a lot of areas, and this is just one of those. And it's really kind of it makes you laugh because the reasons you get for, you know, being against it are just kind of silly and don't make a lot of sense. And when states like Arkansas beat you to the punch, and you know that it's just it's very embarrassing and kind of shocking that we're still at this point where it's not legal. So I know a lot of like the you know, tribes around the area have been preparing
Mm-hmm.
for the gambling to be legalized here shortly, and so they're building spaces, potential sports books in their casinos and establishments. So I think we're all hoping it's coming soon, but it's still just laughable that it hasn't happened yet.
Senator Bill Coleman and Representative Ken Luttrell, both Republicans from Ponca City, say they are ready to advance a new version of a bill to legalize sports betting after securing support from key stakeholders. That includes the supermajority of tribes that are members of the Oklahoma Indian Gaming Association, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the state's leading public universities. Basically saying that they've worked through a lot of the details, listening to tribal partners. It looks like they would be able to make a change to the model gaming compact, legalize in-person and mobile sports wagering that would go through the different tribes as well, that would then work with platforms like FanDuel, DraftKings, Caesars, all of those. Um, but it would make it possible. The big key will be, does the governor sign off or does he veto it? And then what would that process look like as well? We know how that's gone in the past. I will mention all state revenues associated with NBA and WNBA games would go into a strong readers fund to support early childhood literacy programs according to the betting plan, or what the bill will look like. All the other fees, or any fees from other sports that aren't NBA or WNBA, to support higher ed, student development programs, workforce initiatives, and tourism focused on funding, or a tourism focused fund that leverages the Thunder's global reach, along with a fund that would help problem gambling treatment and education programs as well. If Oklahoma passes that, it would become the 40th state, alongside 39 others and Washington, D.C., to have legalized sports gambling.
This is one of those situations where the toothpaste is already out of the tube. You can't
Yep.
put the toothpaste back in the tube, right?
Yep.
This is happening. This is the reality, and
Well, you're
it's
losing
not
revenue.
going away.
People
Right.
are people are going.
Exactly.
They're either doing it illegally, so you're not getting the money from it in that regard, or they're driving up across the border in Kansas or across the border in Arkansas.
Exactly. And these were the same discussions that we had in the past regarding the Oklahoma lottery and,
Oh yeah.
you know, just all these casinos as a whole. It's the same story over and over again. And it seems like state leadership still hasn't learned, and they are delaying progress in this particular sense. Not to get political, but it is very obvious and clear cut that this is kind of ridiculous that it's taken so long, and we should be thinking about ways. You know, you mentioned all those great causes that the money could go to. We just need to start thinking that way and start implementing and start evolving, start progressing, start moving forward a little bit faster than we typically have. It's really annoying that we're so far behind on things of this nature. When I think the majority, you know, understands that it should happen, but there are just those select few that, you know, for whatever reasons, hold it up and kind of delay this progress.
Well, and I'll point out this as well. I think the Thunder are probably getting on board even more so, and probably helping push this a little bit, along with OU, OSU, Tulsa, those types of the major schools as well, because by making it legal, it helps actually be able to track some of the things that we saw with, you mentioned the Trailblazers earlier. They have a quote interim head coach currently and all of that. Why? Chauncey Billups. With some of the gambling things, Damon Jones came out, or he just reached a settlement, I believe, with the federal authorities regarding illegal gambling and providing information and all of that. being able to have legalized gambling allows that data to be tracked, which allows the feds and everyone else to pick up when things get a little screwy and when, hey, that's not a normal bet. Why is they're able to look into that more? They can't do that with illegal
Exactly.
gambling. So being able to have that
Exactly.
will help clean some of those things up, and I
Well,
think the Thunder and,
it's
and
the
those schools
same.
are definitely saying, hey, we need this to protect our own athletes and just the integrity of the game as well.
Absolutely, and it's the same. You know, it's about having that control and kind of being able to really, like you said, track where the stuff is going. It was the same situation, I feel like, with the medical marijuana finally getting passed and things along those lines. Even marijuana across the entire nation, it was a situation where, so many people were participating in it illegally at the time, and I think again the consensus was that okay, we should legalize this and be able to have a hold of it and be able to track where it's going and things along those lines. And it feels similar to that, is like you're fighting a losing battle here by trying to make it not a thing. So why don't you just like stop hurting the state and all of these potential things. You talk about tourism and what a big casino state we are. Even like think about how enhanced the sports books at casinos would be for tourism. Oklahoma City Thunder is so bought in on it. You talked about the professional football team coming in a couple of years, and all of these leagues, they're all pushing DraftKings and all of these sites anyway. So it's just we'll see. Hopefully it's soon, but you never know in this state.
No doubt about it. All right, we're an hour into it, so let's wrap up with this. WrestleMania just took place this weekend. Brad, your thoughts on the 2-day event? A lot of complaints about the length of match time length and all of that. What stood out to you? What did you not like? What did you like?
Overall, I thought it was just an awful presentation. A big problem is you mentioned the match links, but you pair that with the amount of advertising that was shoved down the audience's throat. I know that they have made the move to be broadcasting on ESPN for certain things, and this new TKO ownership is very focused on making the money and cashing in on sponsorships and advertising and all of that. But this was really, it felt like a line in the sand with the fans, in a sense of it was becoming unwatchable because you would have I think what isn't factored in is that between matches, WWE, especially during WrestleMania, they do their own kind of like video packages and backstage segments and things along those lines. And you go through a few minutes of their stuff while they're setting up for the next match and entrances and things along those lines. You go through 5 minutes of WWE's non-show footage and extras. Then you get a pop-up on the streaming that says add 5 minutes remaining. So then you have to watch another 5 minutes of commercials and advertising. And then you start mixing that with a lot of these matches were under 10 minutes in length for the duration. And it's just so unacceptable to me because they've even extended this into a 2-day event in recent years. And I always go back to all of the money that they are taking from the Saudi government and the big paydays that they are getting from them. And in my mind, if I were in a position of power there, I would think, all right, we're getting this, this money, right? Like this is the money that we can use to make our product better for our fans, right? Like we can invest more in storylines and longer matches, and we don't have to shove advertising down their throat because we have this large influx of cash from those events over in the Middle East. And the reality of it is that it's just getting worse and worse as far as that goes. There's also the factor of celebrity involvement, which I don't really like have a problem with as much as a lot of other wrestling fans do. I think obviously it's sports entertainment. Wrestling has always kind of had that celebrity appeal and factor to it. I think it helps make the product a little more mainstream. So I don't necessarily, have a lot of issues with that. I think the biggest one this year with the celebs was how involved they were in the main title matches and storylines. You had Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton, which had a long history, a lot of different ways you can go with that storyline, and WWE decided to throw in Jelly Roll and Pat McAfee, right? And stuff like that is what's insulting to wrestling purists and diehard fans. I can get past it a little bit, but it was overkill, and I think it's just a combination of all of that. And when you don't give matches time to develop, it doesn't feel like there's that major payoff. I do think that the very last match of the event, CM Punk versus Roman Reigns, they gave it the proper amount of time to develop and tell the story of the match, which is the most, I think that's the most compelling side of professional wrestling is when you have those big matches and you let the story unfold. They build up this story over months and months, and the payoff is supposed to be an event like WrestleMania where you get that epic battle and the back and forth, and the crowd is on the edge of their seat, and there's false finishes, and people are just so stressed out. And I think the only example of that in this year's event was the CM Punk and Roman Reigns match. And night one, Cody Rhodes and Orton didn't live up to the standard that I know both of those men have. So just a lot of disappointment this weekend. So hopefully, I think they do. Occasionally, they do a very good job of listening to the fans' feedback, and when if they're not liking somebody, they'll make that person a villain in their storylines because they understand how the fans are leaning and things along those lines. So they have the ability to adjust and adapt to you know these non-positive situations. So hopefully this will be one of those. But I mean, you think about next year. I'm just so worried about WrestleMania because now after this stinker, they're gonna be having a WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia, right? And it's like
Mm-hmm.
you're taking a lot of things away from the fans. WrestleMania, you and I both know, right? Like we've traveled to a WrestleMania and we've experienced it together. It's like such a fun, unique event, especially to experience with your friends. I've had some of my best memories are on those WrestleMania trips, right? Like
Yep.
you just have such a good time, and um, it's silly and all of this, but at the same time, it's just fun, man. It's a great show, and it's like a live action, soap opera. There's theater elements to it and things like that. So I just hope that they realize how much they are actually taking away from the fans. And 90% of people aren't going to be able to attend that show next year, right? They
Yep.
understand that, they know that, but
Mm-hmm.
the paycheck is too enticing for them to ignore it.
Yep.
And so we'll see how that plays out. Hopefully it comes back and they start touring again and going and spreading out through different cities. I know there's some little bit of lashing out about Vegas hosting it a couple years in a row. So
Mm-hmm.
they got to figure out, they got to fix it because it's their big event, and it's kind of it used to be the best way to introduce non-wrestling fans to wrestling, in my opinion, just because there was so much for everybody in it, and now it's becoming just one big advertisement, and it's almost like a sideshow instead of a main attraction.
Yep. No doubt about it. All right, man. I think we've covered quite a bit there in 68 minutes or so. So I think we wrap it up here. As always, you can follow us Twitter, X, Game On Guys, Game On Pod, and on Facebook, TikTok. Email us at emailgameon@gmail.com. Our website, gameonpod.com as well. Brad, it was fun, man.
Yeah. Shook off the rust. I'll see you again in 8 years.
Yeah, something like that. Hopefully the PhD will be done sooner rather than later. Got a little bit more to go.
Yeah, we're going to have a doctor podcaster soon.
Yes. Yeah. That's scary. Dissertation starts
It is
in
scary.
January. So,
That's I flash back to our time in high school and how dumb we were, and to think about this now is just it's funny.
still
I'm
dumb.
so happy for you and I'm proud of you, but it's so funny because you and I both know we're still those dumb kids at our core.
Yes. Exactly. I just read a lot more than I did back then.
Yeah. Well, the energy's a little bit lower, so we have to sit down more, so we might as
It's
well
true.
read and educate ourselves a little bit.
That is very, very true. All right. Enjoy the NFL draft. Enjoy everything that's going on. Maybe the next podcast we can really get into Luis Perez getting traded to the St. Louis Battlehawks. For Brad Bollinger, I am Steve Braun. This has been Game On.